This tutorial will cover texturing approaches for more experienced artists when using Reallusion's Headshot plugin, and we'll focus on three primary areas. First, original photo image quality, shadows and delighting. Second, external texture editing, including access points and dependencies. And third, handling facial expressions in photographs. And whilst this tutorial will focus throughout on using Headshot's Pro mode, the points raised will also be applicable to models created using Auto mode, particularly where artists are using auto-generated models as starting points from which to produce higher quality versions. Now, the first and most fundamental issue when making models with Headshot is the quality of the original photo used. And inexperienced 3D artists may be using photos which are not ideal and wondering why they aren't getting decent results. So this is important. Ideally, the photo should be the highest quality possible, evenly lit and taken face on to the subject, with the subject's face not hidden by head hair and in a neutral, closed-mouth facial expression. If the photo of the subject is not taken completely face on, if it's in shadow or if it's overly lit, and if the subject's face is obscured by head hair and not in a relatively neutral closed-mouth expression, these issues will not only inevitably affect Headshot's processing, making it more difficult for the software to read the subject's features and produce a more accurate model. The problems will also transfer to the diffuse texture which Headshot produces. As I've mentioned in previous tutorials, Headshot already ships with a number of mask approaches which can help to quickly improve various issues of uneven lighting and shadow, but these inevitably reduce the amount of original photo information used. So, if you can improve the original photo in the first place, you will achieve better results by default, with less requirement for adjusting masking and blending or for image editing later. Now, Headshot is not an image editor, and to apply the techniques I'll demonstrate in this tutorial requires the use of an image editor such as Photoshop, which I'll be using, or another editor such as GIMP or PaintShop Pro. And Photoshop does have its own manual lighting adjustment tools, but these, like many automatic delighting approaches, inevitably affect the whole image. So the simplest approach is mirroring, and you can do this as subtly as you wish to maintain asymmetric details. But really, it simply involves copying and flipping the good side of the face, then using a soft eraser to take out the midline, as well as to reveal any asymmetric details which you want to preserve. Now, this particular photo is straightforward to improve using this simple approach, but if we compare the resulting models, you can see a significant difference between the quality of the results which Headshot produces. And particularly for photos where the subject is face on to the camera, you can use mirroring to quickly improve instances of skin shadowing, as well as when head hair may be covering the face. But what if the photo isn't suitable for mirroring, and if, as here, the model appears distorted because of the hair over the subject's face? In cases like this, you can use more advanced compositing approaches, such as replacing the forehead on this subject with the forehead from a photo of someone similar. And whilst this does take practice, as well as careful observation, there are lots of tutorials on how to manipulate images in this way on YouTube. The primary technique is simply selecting an area on one image and copying it to the other, followed by softly erasing the boundary, and then fine-tuning using cloning stamps or healing brushes, as well as tonally adjusting particular areas to produce a more natural match. And you can do this using hue and saturation, as well as dodge and burn brushes to subtly lighten and darken particular areas. Now, this does take time, so here's one I completed earlier. And just as with the mirroring approach described before, improving photos like this inevitably affects the results of Headshot's processing. So, comparing the result from the original photo with the edited version, you can see that both the texture and the automatically generated shape are better on the model produced from the edited photo. Now, let's take a more difficult scenario. In this case, the photo is far from ideal since the subject's head is not face on at all, and the model which results has clearly distorted textures and distorted geometry on the left side of the face. So now I'm doing some more advanced image editing to take the existing photo and transform it into a face which will give better results in Headshot. This entails using all of the techniques already mentioned: mirroring, compositing and tonal adjustment, along with cloning and various transforms. And the process does take time, so again, I'm speeding up the editing here. But you can see that the original photo, which caused such bad results when used to make a headshot model, is being changed into an image where the subject is face on to the camera, and this will make a better model in headshot. And just as when I used the forehead of another subject to make a photo more usable earlier, in this case, I'm blending the face into the head of another subject in order to give headshot a clear head shape to work with. And as I hope you'll see, editing the image in this way makes a huge difference to the quality of the model produced automatically by the application. Now, headshot is a pipeline tool, not only as a new and powerful part of the overall 3D character production process, but also in itself. It works as a pipeline from the original photo through to the final head and face model, which in terms of image editing and customizing image elements, can actually be accessed at 3 fundamental points. Let's consider these access points and their particular dependencies. First, and most obviously, you can access headshot at the original photo stage. And once this is loaded into headshot, it cannot be changed without making a new headshot model from scratch, which is another reason why it's important to use or prepare the best photos possible. Second, within headshot itself, once you've created a model, in the texture adjustment part of the UI, you can access the photo projected texture map, as well as the current mask and procedural texture combinations, including skin diffuse, roughness, and normal, and you can export, edit, and reload them as custom maps. You can also simply drag in or load your own custom maps into the thumbnail slots. Now, if you edit the textures currently loaded into the texture alignment UI, there are inevitably some limitations. So, for example, if you edit the original photo projection map and then use image alignment and reproject from the original image, it's going to replace your edited map with a new projection. But if you're at the stage where you don't need to reproject, where the photo projection is as good as you want it to be, you can of course edit this map and continue to blend it with the masks as well as procedural elements. So, to be clear, Skin Texture Update combines the textures in the current thumbnail slots, and if you change what's in these slots, it will change the output texture. Meanwhile, Reproject will produce a new diffuse texture based on the photo and the current state of the 3D model, and blend it with the current images. So if you've edited the photo-based diffuse map here, and want to keep the edits as part of your texture, don't use the reproject function. The third access point is via the character's Modify Material panel, where you can access headshot's current baked output. These are the conventional maps which you find on standard CC3 characters, and they can of course be exported and edited from here. However, again, if you do edit these textures and then go back and reproject or update the skin texture in headshot itself, any textures which you have edited via the material panel will inevitably be replaced and updated with headshot's current textures. So using the character's Modify Material panel should be considered the last stage if you need to make final texture tweaks after working in headshot. So, just to sum up this part on image editing access points, there are 3. The original photo, within headshot itself, and via the standard material Modify panel. Now, to finish off, I'll apply some of these techniques on a particular model I'm working on. Here, I've already performed some delighting by mirroring and tonal adjustment of the photo. I've also done some initial photo alignment, and I've used some procedural texturing and custom masking. But one of the biggest remaining problems is that in the photo, the subject's mouth is open. Now, I could fix this on the photo itself using image editing, but here I'll combine using morphs along with editing the headshot photo projected texture in order to correct the mouth and make it ready for animation. And the principle here, which is essentially using morphs to compensate for the open mouth expression, can also be used to adjust the mouth for open mouth smiles as well as other facial expressions. So the first step is to apply morphs to match the expression, in this case the open lips, and then I reproject the texture. Next, I use another morph to close the whole lips, and if the subject's jaw was open, I would raise the jaw slightly. But the result of this correction is that the mouth is now better proportioned, and since it's properly closed, it's ready for animation. Now, before I do any more work on the mouth, I want to adjust this model's normals, and since there's still a lot of texture work to do, I'll do this via the texture adjustment panel in Headshot, rather than on the final output in the Modify Material panel. It's important to know that Headshot does not yet create unique normals based on the photo texture, and whilst the procedural normals can be very effective, you can improve results by blending the procedural normal with a normal created from the photo texture. There are many ways to do this using normal map generators, but here in Photoshop you can simply apply a normal map filter to the diffuse and then blend it with the procedural normal. And the edited normal map makes a significant difference to the way light acts on the skin and how the diffuse texture is displayed, including revealing some remaining skin texture issues at the inner lips. So here I'm simply editing the photo texture back in Photoshop. Now this model can still be refined much further, and to do this I'll be using the techniques I've demonstrated here, along with further work on the geometry. But meanwhile, I hope that this tutorial has been of interest and has suggested further possibilities in terms of how to use Headshot creatively. Thanks for watching.